All right, welcome everybody to episode 7 of Planet Hero. As you guys can see, things are a little bit different here. We finally were able to get J Scotty on, not of any fault of his, totally on us because
Yeah.
of scheduling and all that stuff. But
hmm
we are finally able to have him on, so we are delighted to have him joining us today. First official guest on Planet Hero episode. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right into the episode. Today we are reviewing WandaVision episode 6. It's called the All New Halloween Spooktacular. Very, very good episode for me. Why don't we go around and just give our initial thoughts on the episode, and then I have some fan submitted thoughts too that we'll go after that, and then we'll kind of do a full breakdown. So, Jay Scotty, do you want to go first as the guest here?
Yeah, sounds good. I'll just start by saying, first of all, thanks for having me on. It's a real honor and a privilege to be the first guest here. As far as WandaVision goes, I've really been enjoying the series, and I really like the momentum we've been experiencing, and this episode especially continued that. Without getting too into spoilers and whatnot, obviously we had a big character reveal in the last episode, and I felt like that really set the tone going forward for this episode. There were some real horror vibes, and I really enjoyed that part of the show when they kind of lean into the more creepy and disturbing aspects of the MCU. So I'm coming real high off this episode, and I'll be interested to hear what you guys thought too.
Awesome. TJ, you want to hit it next?
Yeah. I thought it was a really good follow-up episode. It honestly didn't kind of, especially like with what you mentioned, like the character that showed up at the end of the last episode. He didn't really, he wasn't exactly the way I thought he was going to be, honestly. And he didn't, he was just kind of all over the episode, which I didn't really expect. I kind of thought maybe he'd show up for like another 5 minutes and then like take off or something. But they're starting to, I'd say like this is like the beginning of the final, like the finale, especially with how it ends. Yeah, basically. And it's still got you looking forward to things for next week, especially with the aerospace engineer that we don't know who it is, but I think all of us have a pretty decent guess. But yeah, I thought it was a really good episode. I'm excited for next week.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I echo a lot of what the two of them just said. I just think this show consistently similar to Mandalorian. It more season 2 of the Mandalorian than season 1, but every single episode as it goes just keeps getting better and better and better, and just keeps building upon itself and upon everything that came before it in the MCU in a huge way. The commercial was probably the creepiest commercial that we've gotten so far.
Oh yeah, that was bizarre.
That was very, very. I don't know. I mean, it was a claymation short, but I would say it was very graphic for Disney Plus.
Yeah.
But yeah, the overall episode, I have similar thoughts on as you, TJ, with the guest that after the initial thoughts, we'll get into spoilers and everything. But with the guest who even refers to himself as like the guest star, he says that in the episode. I just think that was great use of him. And another thing with this episode that I love too was all the stuff with Tommy and Billy, like kind of what happens with them, and they're kind of, not to get too spoilery, but I mean, we're assuming you've seen it if you're watching this. But with their abilities is kind of a first for the MCU, like being naturally born with abilities. So it's very, very cool to see them kind of manifest like that. Right around the same age that mutants manifest their abilities. Very interesting. Yeah, so I think very, very good episode. Crazy last like 2 minutes, just like every single episode of this show, with a massive cliffhanger of what's happening, what's going to happen with Darcy, like how is all that going to go, and then of course, like you said, the aerospace engineer for next week, which we're assuming it's going to be next week. So I think there's a lot to look forward to in this, basically, and I agree too that I think we're finally really ramping up to the end here. I think next week is probably going to be the last week of the sitcom thing, because we've seen in the trailer she does the the look to camera stuff with like Modern Family or like The Office or something like that. So we know we're getting one more at least sitcom thing, and then probably it'll be just all bets are off for a 2-part finale. But let me go ahead and read. We have 2 fan submitted thoughts from both Shannon and Michelle here. So Shannon says, immaculate writing. It's just unbelievably good. I did not see her expanding the hex, but it was very effective when it happened. She's meaning like she didn't see it coming, I think.
Right.
And then she said she
didn't see
loved the
that coming.
choice. Yeah, she said she loved the choice to bring the kids in for Halloween to prove the Vision that it was a legit town. So basically, like,
Yeah.
right after he said that, all of a sudden it's Halloween. And then we'll be in full spoilers now because she does mention, she says she believes that Quicksilver is a plant, possibly from Hayward, to kind of see how she's doing it or what she really can do. And then she also said, I'm sure Hayward has something up his sleeve and wants to weaponize it. And she said that in her opinion, if that's just where Hayward eventually is going, she says that's a little cliche on her part. But she says she doesn't know if that's really, where they might go with it. And then from Michelle, we have, I thought the episode was very interesting, that the idea that Agnes was running things seems to have kind of been turned on its head, and things are being
Right.
pointed back at Wanda. So as we talked about on this show last week, when he kind of wakes up Norm, we thought maybe, because Norm never says a name, we thought maybe he was referring to Agnes or something like that. But she was, but now seemingly when he wakes up Agnes, she was referring to Wanda, but she could have just been lying. That's a whole nother thing too. And then she says, for the end, I feel like at the end, Wanda and Vision will fight together to either keep things as they are or to keep him alive in some way. And then she says she thinks the big cameo at the end will be Doctor Strange needing to come in to basically help set everything back right.
Yeah.
And maybe work a way to legitly, bring Vision back for Wanda.
Now, do you think that, again, this is going back to that interview that Elizabeth Olsen did, do we think that the aerospace engineer could be the Luke Skywalker-esque cameo, do you think, or no? Do you think it'll be like, I know we've discussed like, we think, me and Sean, I don't know, you, J Scotty, we think that Doctor Strange will definitely show up in this show at the end, most likely.
He's the one I'm hedging my bets around as well.
Yeah.
I think that's the most likely candidate. But as I kind of, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no problem. I think it's two separate things. So I think that the aerospace engineer is not the big cameo.
Right.
I think that the aerospace engineer is going to be the what am I going to say? An MCU introduction to a character. But I do think the big cameo will be Doctor Strange. I think that it has potential to be somebody, even bigger than that. We've talked about maybe, Michael Fassbender as Magneto. That's a popular theory that's going around because of all the stuff with their parents and everything. But I think, like you kind of said, I'm kind of hedging my bets on Doctor Strange. I think that's the more likely candidate for who the cameo might be. But yeah, let's just jump right off with who we think the aerospace engineer is. I think it would be a super bold move to what the internet seems to think and what Twitter seems to think, which is just they're gonna introduce Reed Richards, right now. I think that
it's really trending.
Yeah, like I think that would be a super bold strategy to introduce the character because also, I mean, the collaboration is very apparent in that, but it's like also I don't want them to step on John Watts' toes with like the Fantastic Four movie that he's doing. But then again, maybe John Watts is, working with WandaVision because there's potential that Wanda might show up in Spider-Man 3 already, which is obviously directed by John Watts. So Marvel knows what they're doing, you know what I mean? They got all the Seven Peter stuff done with nobody knowing about it, besides rumors and stuff like that. But yeah, I think I've actually seen, I have been Team Krasinski all the way with Reed Richards. But I've actually liked the casting that I've seen on Twitter the past couple days of Andrew Lincoln, like Rick from The Walking Dead. I think he would be. He's another one that pretty much just looks exactly like the comic book, Reed Richards, same as Krasinski. So I think that either one of them would be great. I think if you're gonna surprise us all and drop Reed Richards in there, I think if it was Krasinski, that would be so hard to keep under wraps, like with no casting rumors. Like you look at what happened with Mando. Basically, everybody that was rumored to be in Mando season 2 ended up being in Mando season 2. You know what I mean? So it's like I put a lot
but like wasn't the Evan Peters thing, like didn't they cover that up? Because I feel like that I only saw that because it was on IMDb.
Well, the Evan Peters thing, there was reports like months earlier that Evan Peters was going to be in WandaVision, just not, they just didn't know what.
Yeah.
But now that I'm talking like that, I'm like, oh, it's hard for them to keep John Krasinski under wraps. Nobody knew about Mark Hamill. Nobody knew about Luke.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it could be, you know, and people said, I think even maybe Roka theorized like that they were like, maybe we heard about, you know, Tamora Morrison and, you know, oh my God, his name is escaping me, Timothy Olyphant and all that stuff, and Katie Sackhoff. Maybe they let those out
to throw you off the trail,
to throw you off the scent of Luke. Yeah, so maybe they were like, you know, we'll throw out the Evan Peters thing, you know, that he's in it, so that you don't know that like Krasinski or somebody really big is gonna be in this. So who do you, J Scotty, will go to you next. Who do you think the aerospace engineer would be?
Yeah, there's a few things to unpack there. My theory is a little different. So the MCU has a long-standing tradition of, you know, introducing characters that have already been announced through their other properties. And one of the properties that's out there that's kind of hanging that we don't really know that much about, that is supposed to come out in 2021, is the Eternals, because we know they dropped it's Eternals. So my theory is there's an Eternal named Phastos who is being portrayed by Brian Tyree Henry.
Okay.
And the character Phastos, basically his whole shtick is he is a master engineer. He's a master mechanic. He's an inventor. And like the whole thing with the Eternals is throughout history, they're immortal beings. So he was often confused for Hephaestus, who was the Greek god of, you know, the forge and inventing. So I think that'd be a really interesting way to plant that seed. We know that Brian Tyree's portrayal, he's going to be one of the first like outright gay characters in the MCU as well. So WandaVision is doing such a good job of like introducing these smaller characters like jimmywoo, Arcee, who were kind of like a little bit undermined in the past. So I think it'd be perfectly within keeping to bring Phastos in at this point in time. And I think the people that are paying attention to the MCU would really appreciate that.
That's very interesting. I haven't seen that anywhere. I think that's a very good.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Well, like you said, it's kind of like Eternals is kind of like that franchise that's just kind of hanging out there. It doesn't have much tie yet. So I think that would be a really good call to bring somebody from that world in to kind of start, you know, tying it in. That's a great one. Yeah. And, you know, like you said, he's already a character that we know is coming and we know is already in the role, like that kind of stuff. It would probably be easier to keep somebody like that under wraps than, you know, a brand new huge casting. So yeah, that's a very good theory. TJ, what are you who are you leaning towards?
I was leaning towards Reed Richards, but I might have to go with J Scotty's here now, because I mean Eternals is, I mean you have Black Widow and then Eternals is supposed to end, right? Isn't that like not right after, but it's a few months later? So I'm kind of leaning towards that one.
2021 currently.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Because I think, like you said, Sean, like it's one of those properties that I feel like we're just like kind of glossing over, because everybody's like, oh, Black Widow's next, and then everybody's like, oh, what's next after that? It's like Eternals, and everybody's like, what is that? Because I feel like they've only had like that like reveal at, was it like Comic-Con or something, where they brought all of them on stage and they talked about it a little bit, and that was about it. I think. Right. So I think that'd be kind of a cool way to like ease, you know, the Marvel fans, MCU fans into those characters if you bring one of them from Eternals into the show. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I might have to go with that one. But yeah, I have not seen it anywhere. That's the first I've ever heard of that.
I think there's just so many. There's just so many options. Yeah, exactly. I think it's very interesting that just, you know, with the term aerospace engineer, how many options there are, you know, from existing characters in the MCU and also the comics and stuff like that. It really could be anyone. I mean, there's popular theories, but I mean, it could just be some random guy that's like a Jimmy Woo or something like that. That's like a Marvel, like an MCU specific, just like new character that we kind of have as part of that like little team. So yeah, I think it'd be very, very interesting. J Scotty, who are you leaning towards, if we're just kind of in the speculation, who are you leaning towards as the big cameo? Do you think it'll be this one, or do you think it'll be somebody else in the finale?
No, so I agree with you guys. I do think that the big cameo is separate from the aerospace engineer.
Okay.
Again, I'm leaning towards Doctor Strange for that big cameo at the end. We know that WandaVision has been long foretold to feed directly into Multiverse of Madness. What role? And I'm kind of diverging a little bit here, so I apologize, but it's something I want to discuss. What role Wanda is going to play in Multiverse of Madness? I'm still kind of on the fence about, because it's long been speculated that she's going to go into that series, that movie, as the antagonist. But with the character of monicarambeau, a major through line with her and her relationship to Wanda has been understanding her grief. So I don't think you can rule out the possibility that before it's all said and done, when we get this final showdown, if it's Wanda versus Vision or Wanda versus Doctor Strange, who have you, I think Monica is going to be there and be on the side of Wanda, maybe with superpowers. So
yeah.
I know, Sean.
Oh yeah.
Sean, you speculated that you think that Doctor Strange 2 will be like almost like a babysitting adventure with Wanda and Doctor Strange, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think J Scotty's thing is just as likely.
No, yeah.
I think it could go one of two ways. It could be she goes full tilt, Scarlet Witch evil at the end of this, and then, she goes in as the antagonist, and then maybe in that movie is where they, maybe discover that somebody else is working behind the scenes or something like that. Or maybe they discover that in this show, and then it is kind of like a reluctant team up situation where Doctor Strange is like, if we both have this great magic power, like, you can't just go around doing whatever you want, like, and here's why. You know what I mean? This is the kind of stuff that can happen. And then it's kind of them going around and setting things right that either she messed up or maybe even that Loki messed up, because we know Loki comes out before that. So yeah, I think it could go really one of two ways, with what her actual, like J Scotty said, what her actual role is in Multiverse of Madness. Because it could definitely go a couple different ways. It'll also be very interesting to see if, we know that she is going to be in Multiverse of Madness, but we have not heard anything about, Paul Bettany's future in the MCU. One would probably assume, because it's such a popular character, in some way or another, he will come back eventually. But also Marvel has, they've killed off and they've just done away with very popular characters in the past. I mean, you look at, granted, they brought him back and gave him 8 years of television, but like Phil Coulson, like he was in Phase 1, he was one of the most fan favorite characters of all of them, and then they killed him. And in the Avengers movie, nobody knew that he was, that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was going to happen. He was just gone. Yeah, exactly. And then obviously, you have people like Tony and Natasha and stuff like that too. But yeah, I think it could go either way, in terms of what comes after WandaVision.
Right.
Let me just we'll continue the speculation with one more question, then we'll go into our deeper thoughts on the episode. Do you guys think that this is something that, I would say eventually, because it's probably going to take a while to get there, do you guys think that we could see a WandaVision season 2, or do you think this is just a completely contained kind of arc?
I think it's contained, just because like I feel like you don't want to overstep your boundary. You know what I mean? Like season 1 was really good, but like I feel like you'd have to come up with an entirely new premise. Like you can't redo the whole like sitcom through the decades like shtick again, because it works so well the first time. You don't want to because I think just people will get tired of it. Yeah. And the way it's trending, I feel like it won't need a second season. And I feel like most of the shows they're doing, I feel like it's always, I think I said this like a few weeks ago, I feel like it's half and half, where some of them will have multiple seasons, one of them will, some will be one-offs. But yeah, I don't think they should do another one just because you don't want to overstep your boundary, basically.
Yeah. What do you think, J Scotty?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page with TJ. Sorry about that. Yeah, it seems very self-contained right now, especially given how tonally different it is and divergent from the rest of the MCU. But I am open to the possibility of it returning. I think
Mhm.
one of the ways it would be cool to see it come back is if a show like What If were to get a season 2, maybe we could revisit the world of WandaVision in an entry of What If.
Oh yeah, that'd be very cool. Yeah, maybe like what if WandaVision was with a different character? Like, what if it was like, you know what I mean? Like, what if obviously, well, with what if they play around with different characters having other characters' powers and stuff? So like, what if it's like a what if of I don't know, somebody that. Well, what if of like Steve Rogers before he went back to live with Peggy, like moving heaven and earth to
Yeah.
have this perfect life with Peggy without time travel, like you know what I mean, like kind of bringing her back, kind of things. I don't know, something like that. But or like even if you had the what if like Hank Pym trying to bring back Janet before he knew that she was still alive, something like that. That would be very very cool. Kind of WandaVision with a twist, from like a different perspective. Um, but yeah, I think it really could go either way. I think I agree with what TJ said with you definitely, whatever it is, if there's any sort of continuation of WandaVision, you can't do the same kind of shtick with it. Because that's kind of a one-time use thing. Clearly, because it's like it's basically they were smart enough to know, you have to keep also doing the decade changing, because if it was just
Yeah.
if the whole show was just 2010s sitcom for 8 weeks and then an action movie for the last two, you know what I mean, like people would have lost interest in that. So they knew enough, you kind of have to keep it evolving and keep it changing. But yeah, like you said, kind of I think it's very clear that some of these shows are going to be, as they call them, event series, and then some are going to be more
Right.
multi-season, like Loki. Something like Loki and She-Hulk, we know is going to be multi-season because it's kind of procedural, in that kind of a way. Especially with both of them being, one's a courtroom procedural, one's a time cop procedural, basically with buddy cop with him and Owen Wilson, which I can't wait for.
Oh my God.
and then again, like we talked about on Planet Film this past week, Hawkeye, probably something like that, is going to be an event series that could be one off. Although you could have a season 2 of Hawkeye focusing on like Kate or something like that.
Yeah,
totally.
But yeah, I think if these shows are multi-seasoned, it will not just be a procedural like SVU or something like that. I think there will be big change over the course of the shows. So like even something like Loki, I'm sure something huge is going to happen at the end of season 1 that even if there is a season 2, it's going to be a very different type of thing. Because the MCU does not like to stay stagnant with kind of their style and stuff like that for their different franchises. So that was a good healthy dose of speculation and just kind of look forward to what we can expect. But let's bring it back and focus on this episode. So let's just start off with the beginning. What do you guys think of, obviously the Malcolm in the Middle intro and, kind of the beginning stages of the episode with, kind of them coming down with their costumes and the whole, Billy, kind of we see the start of the looking to camera that then we know Wanda will do next week, but kind of in the Malcolm in the Middle style where it's inside the scene. So what did you guys think of all that? TJ, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Well, I'll be honest, I didn't watch Malcolm in the Middle. So I've probably seen like an episode here or there on like Nick and Night or whatever. But I like looked at Danielle and I was like, what is this? And she was like, Malcolm in the Middle. I was like, oh, okay. I don't know. But I thought it was really cool. It was kind of like like you said, like they kind of start to show like the whole talking head type thing where it's the camera at them and they're talking to the camera, which you hadn't seen really in the past weeks. Yeah, I'm interested to see. I'm more intrigued now with the development of their kids. Like I want to see what they be. I know like they're supposed to be. What are their names? Speed and what was the other one? Wiccan. Correct. Like that's who they're supposed to be. So I'm excited for that. And I've just loved Evan. I thought Evan Peters was hilarious. Yeah. Like I told Danielle, I was like, I haven't really seen him much. I was like, is he in this? Is he like this and everything? Like he's like just this like over the top, almost like just character. But yeah, I thought it was really good.
Awesome. J Scotty, you want to go?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, as soon as it started, I was instantly transported back to my adolescence. I watched a fair amount of Malcolm in the Middle. Everybody hates Chris, so I definitely got those vibes. And just hearing that Malcolm in the Middle is on Nick at Night now makes me feel really old. But other than that, yeah, I really liked like the VCR effect that they use for the opening intro.
Mhm.
And I know we're really not on speculation here, but one thing I couldn't help but on a rewatch, I had to pause when you get the intro of Agnes and the two boys. Agnes is wearing those like bedazzled sweatpants, and it says naughty across her butt. I'll have to see if that's just a little wink and nod to her, another reference to her high libido or what. But,
Yeah.
yeah, I really dug it. I like that set the tone immediately. It's nice to see the kids actually come into the forefront and be characters and get some of their personality. You know, we really got the feel that Billy is more of the a little more of the scholar, where Tommy is going to be a lot more like Quicksilver, as we find out later in the episode.
A little more reckless. Yeah. I thought as soon as the first frame of the intro started, I was like, all right, this is Malcolm in the Middle. I was like, I can't believe you've only seen like 1 or 2 episodes. I can't remember which.
I did watch more Everybody Hates Chris. I did watch that more.
Yeah. I can't remember what station I watched it on, but I definitely Everybody Hates Chris and Malcolm in the Middle. I watched a ton of. I would have loved to see, I don't know, I mean, it's getting my hopes up too much, but I was just like holding my breath the whole episode for maybe like a Malcolm in the Middle cameo or something like that from somebody.
No.
That would have been so funny. Oh my God, that would have been great. But yeah, it's literally as soon as the first frame hit of, like you said, like the kind of the VHS effect and stuff, I was like, oh my God, they're doing Malcolm in the Middle, which I was so excited for. And I think it's kind of interesting too that they kind of skipped over the 90s. Like Malcolm in the Middle was the year 2000, so it was kind of in that. And then last week's episode, you could say it was the look of the 80s, but also the kind of show was a little bit early 90s, that stuff too. And also I think we just have to we have to get these decades moving a little bit, so I think it could be forgiven that they can't focus on every single one. But I just, nevertheless, I thought that was a very interesting thing that they just kind of moved right to the 2000s, which I was happy about. But yeah, I think just like you guys, I am very, very excited about Billy and Tommy and their future and seeing their powers manifest in this episode. I am a huge, my big theory before the Investors Day call where we revealed that, Ant-Man was going to be Ant-Man and the Wasp 3 Quantumania, I was holding out hope for Ant-Man and the Wasp, and the Young Avengers, that was a theory going around. I just want some sort of a Young Avengers because we have so many we have so many Young Avengers. Yeah. Now we have, Kate Bishop, we know that Riri Williams is coming. We have, Billy and Tommy now, Cassie Lang, you know what I mean? There's so many people that kind of the next generation is starting to come. Oh yeah, J Scotty.
I was just gonna say America Chavez was announced for Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, and I feel like that's such an interesting movie to bring her into. Oh, and of course, Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel.
Oh, duh, yeah.
Well. Kind of probably who eventually probably end up being the biggest Young Avenger. But I love. And I love that, there's some of these actresses and actors that we haven't seen yet. But people like Haley Steinfeld, we know that she's going to bring it as Kate Bishop. They clearly loved, her name is escaping me right now, but the young actress who's playing Kamala Khan. Like, I just love that Marvel is going to be, it's not going to be annoying kid actors. Seemingly, you know what I mean? Right. It's going to be actors who, just looking at the kids who play Billy and Tommy, like they are rock solid child actors. Like they are not the annoying type from like oh yeah, sorry.
Iman Vellani, that's her name.
Okay, yeah. Like clearly they saw something great in her because this is her first on screen big performance. And they picked her out. I think they said they picked her out of what like hundreds of people that auditioned or something like that. Which is, obviously a big boost of confidence for her. I just want to see some sort of a Young Avengers movie with all of them because I'm loving what we have seen so far and what we're going to see even more of. Yeah, but I think, the whole thing with, you know, Quicksilver and the kind of dynamic with Tommy and stuff like that is so was so funny in this episode. And I do agree slightly with Michelle, the fan who wrote in. I think that I don't know if Quicksilver was sent in by Hayward, but Quicksilver is clearly somebody who came in to test Wanda, which is funny because he's like, he says to her, you know, you're testing me, like when he asked about the kid's name,
the kid thing,
the skin thing, which I thought was so funny. But I think it's exactly the opposite. I think he's in there to kind of poke and prod at her with the, you know, come on, your dead husband can't die twice. And it's like, actually, this would be the third time. This would be the third time he dies. And then he immediately gets thrown. Oh, yeah. Just kidding.
So one thing that stuck out to me is he has that scene with Wanda where they're sitting on the bench, and he basically, he's like us, he's discussing the nature of the show. He's like, hey, you brought me in to stir up trouble, to ultimately cause you grief. So it's, and then we also got Herb in this episode, and it seems like there are like increasing levels of like cognizance over Wanda's powers and her control over everybody. So yeah, it really is interesting. I mean, he says, he's like, what happened to your face? And he's like, yeah, you found Shangri-La, you wouldn't want to be reminded of the past either. So is it actually Pietro and she's just like wiped his face so she wouldn't be reminded of the Aaron Taylor Johnson version? I really don't know, but that's what's so great about this show is like each episode, it gives us these nuggets, but there's still so much room to speculate.
Absolutely, yeah. And I love that line too. I rewatched it was it this morning? Maybe last night, something like that. I watched it twice, and I didn't catch that line on the first watch, but I caught it on the second one where he says exactly that. He's like, if you found, you know, Shangri-La, you wouldn't want to be reminded of the past either. And I think that's a great theory because I will say this, it's definitely not the Pietro or Peter from the Fox films, because the way that his powers work is different. But also the way that his powers look in this is not the exact same way that Aaron Taylor Johnson's did. So I still think the best theory is that this is a multiverse version of Pietro that she kind of grabbed in, because he is more similar to the Aaron Taylor Johnson one, but Aaron Taylor Johnson very distinctly had, you know, kind of bright blue trails behind him. This one kind of has, you know, kind of smaller, like white or gray trails behind him. So that, I mean, and that if they wanted that to be the same, they would have made it be the same. So
you see a glimpse. Don't you see a glimpse of Aaron Taylor Johnson again as like a flashback as well in this episode?
Recap.
Oh, it was in the recap. Okay,
yeah, in the recap they showed it, which is interesting because it's the first time we've ever seen a recap include a clip from the movies. Which was very. I was like, when the show started and it said like all titles shown currently available on Disney Plus, I was like, what does that mean? And then I was like, oh, there must be a shot of like Aaron Taylor Johnson or something. And he has the memories of the Avengers one because he's like, I got shot like a chump in the street. And the next moment, you recall my name, which is very interesting.
And then they do like what they did with Vision, like the dead shot where he's just has bullet holes in him and he's dead. I was like, oh my god.
Which goes I think more to my theory when we saw, you know, the dead Vision, which was terrifying. I'm still holding out for that Funko Pop of dead Vision, wearing the sweater vest. But I think that goes to show that when she looks back and sees them dead, I think that is more just her seeing that because she knows that they're supposed to be dead. I don't think that's like a physical thing because it wouldn't really make sense because we know that Evan Peters' body did not get those bullet wounds. Aaron Taylor Johnson's did. So I think it was more like a memory that like she knows that this isn't right kind of a thing. Otherwise, I don't think it would really make much sense that he would have the bullet holes. Unless we're supposed to believe that literally, like J Scotty said, like this is maybe, you know, Aaron Taylor Johnson literally with just a different face. Which, you know, at this point, like J Scotty said, like, it gives us so much, but there's still so much room to speculate. Like we have literally no idea. But either way, I think it would be very, very cool. So let's go ahead and move on to kind of the next segment of the episode. So, or actually, let's just touch on real quick one part in the beginning. that we didn't talk about is clearly there was some sort of a discussion had off screen between Wanda and Vision, because he says, he's going out for the night. Oh no, he does overtly say that it's for neighborhood watch, which was just
No, he does, yeah.
But she was like, that's not what you're supposed to, and he was like, what? He was like, what was that again? And she was like, oh, like she was like clearly annoyed. So what did you guys think about that? Just him openly lying to her to clearly, do some recon on the town for this episode. And I guess we could just kind of take that and move into the next part, which is them, starting to trick or treat and then kind of Vision walking around the town. What'd you think, J Scotty?
Yeah, so the other thing about that scene and the whole episode, I'll have to mention that I really appreciate is that we got these nods to the classic costumes. So as Wanda comes down the stairs, we get the full Scarlet Witch regalia. Mm-hmm. It's a little cheesy, but she looked great in it. And, we get the backstory that's a Sokovian fortune teller. But yeah, and then I really love that Vision was supposed to be a luchador, and we learned a little bit more about Wanda and some of her the funnier aspects of her personality. Apparently she has a thing for luchadors, chili con carne.
Yeah.
As far as like Vision directly disobeying her and whatnot, it's pretty obvious that he's caught on to what she's doing, and he's found ways to behave within her parameters without her resetting everything. And I got to imagine a big part of that is the kids as well. But the other thing that really stuck out to me is when they finally, Quicksilver comes in, he's like, hey, I got the XY chromosome. I can be the father figure here. And so when Vision says bye, he kisses Wanda on the forehead and he says, be good. But the way he says be good, he is legit. There's a lot of fear in his voice there.
Yeah.
So that really stuck out to me, and I thought it was pretty palpable.
Absolutely. TJ?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because I feel like a lot of I feel like you can go both ways with the idea that while she is obviously controlling him, he's also able to do things by himself. Like, you know what I mean? Like I think she's just reanimating him and he's just thinking for himself almost, I guess.
Yeah.
If that's the correct way to put it.
Vision is being I think Vision has autonomy over himself.
Clearly. Right. Yeah.
Otherwise he wouldn't have been able to leave Westview.
Right.
So I think she's more, putting his. But it's interesting. Do you guys think that him being alive again is something that she, kind of like the townspeople, is something that Wanda is constantly focused on, putting effort into? Or do you think it was something that she just brought him back and now he's back? Or do you think it's something like if she loses focus for a second, he could just drop dead?
I feel like he's fine as long as as we see like later. I think he's fine as long as he's in that bubble
in Westview,
that dome in Westview, because obviously as we see when he tries to get out, he's basically disintegrating. Which again, that's also that was also like very scary. I was like, this is
that was
like
terrifying.
he's like dying a slow, painful death. Like this looks terrible. But yeah, like I just thought it was interesting that he was able to like kind of go like off on his own. And obviously they talked to her, or she talks to her in like I think another 5 minutes, and she's like, "Oh, I thought Vision was on duty," and he's like, "No, he's not."
Yeah.
And then we obviously see him just wandering around, basically.
I thought this episode, Vision is, he's always, even before the show, he's always been one of my favorite characters from the MCU. Just because I think Paul Bettany is such a great actor. Going back to like A Knight's Tale, obviously is like the big one that he's like amazing in. But yeah, I love the stuff that we got from Vision in this episode. And like J Scotty said, I think that hits the nail right on the head of he has found a way to kind of tiptoe the line of, he'll be like, she'll be like, that's not what you're supposed to, and he'll be like, hey, what about that? But then he'll like switch gears and he'll be like, I know how much you love, luchadors, like that kind of, like he's kind of playing into the innocent parts of the whole reality thing. But when it comes to the more serious stuff, like he's not messing around. You know what I mean? Like he's like, you're not going to control what I do, but like I'll still be like, I still love you, like I'm still your husband, like that kind of thing, which I loved seeing that. But then also when he's away from her, he's clearly terrified and wants to know, he kind of also, we kind of see he still doesn't really want to fully believe that it's Wanda doing all of this stuff.
Right.
Like he says to Agnes when he wakes her up, like he kind of says in very clear terms, he doesn't really touch on the fact that she says, Wanda won't even let us think about leaving. He just kind of brushes over that part because I think he doesn't want to deal with it really, and just kind of goes like, it's my intention to reach the people outside of Westview to kind of figure out what is going on here. Like, he still doesn't even want to fully believe everyone that's telling him that this is just Wanda doing this, including what he thinks himself, and pretty much what Wanda has, shown him to be true, that she's the one controlling everything. He still doesn't want to believe it. I think eventually it'll be proven that, he's right, because I think it's kind of hard to take Agnes's word for it, saying, because Agnes is the only one who by name said Wanda won't let us think about that.
Yeah.
I think in that moment, I think she's just totally BSing.
Yeah, and then she laughs like a crazy person. So
no, exactly. And like when she yells the word dead, like I was like, if he woke her up and that's supposed to be the real person again, like that she wasn't behaving like a real person. You know what I mean? Like unless maybe she was like having a psychotic episode or something like that. But it was just kind of weird behavior because what we saw with Norm is like when he woke Norm up, Norm went back to just being a completely regular person. Like, where's my phone? I gotta call my family. Like, what's going on? Like, and Agnes was just being all like weird. And I thought also another thing that we got a good glimpse of in this episode is Vision not remembering his life before, or not even not even knowing his life before. Like when he's like, I am Vision, like I am here to help you, but what's an Avenger? And
yeah, Danielle, I was like, what is he talking about? And Danielle was like, remember, he doesn't remember. I was like, oh yeah. I was like, he doesn't know what the hell's going on really, or remember anything about his life.
The previous episode, they had that whole argument where they both like rose, and he's like, I don't remember my life outside of West. I'm scared. So,
it was the acting in this is so great.
Yeah, one of the things I think we're just kind of like, we're kind of going on now, we're like skipping around, but one of the cool things that I thought was obviously throughout all the episodes we've seen these like kind of glitches in the simulation.
Yeah.
And again, we see it when he's basically walking down the street, and there's just basically that lady who's like hanging her sheet or clothes or whatever, and she just keeps going like this. And so he's like, what? And then he just keeps walking, and then he gets to the cul-de-sac where just nobody's moving. And I was like, this is almost like an this is almost like you're playing a game and it's not rendered yet, and you've skipped, and everything's just like you're just looking at all the assets.
It just reminded
it's just
me
not
of,
moving.
It reminded me of, you guys know the boat people in Spider-Man PS4?
Yeah.
The people, there's like a glitch where if you do like a flip as Spider-Man and you make it all the way out to a boat on the water, there's these people with unrendered heads that are just these huge blocks.
No, they're like that. No, that's different.
Like that?
Yeah, they did that on purpose.
Oh, okay. Well, still, like it reminds
but still,
me of
it's funny.
like
Yeah, it's exactly like that, where it's like it's just not rendered yet. Yeah, and you're not on that screen, or like he's not supposed to be on that screen almost, or he's not supposed to be there. So they have no point doing anything. So I thought that was very funny. Yeah. And then. Yeah, I don't know. Where do you want to go from here?
I think after that, I mean, we can talk. We'll kind of, like you said, we'll kind of jump around because we're kind of try and keep the show to like an hour today. Let's talk about outside of Westview. Well, the artist formerly known as Outside of Westview, because it all became part of it at the end. But what do you guys think is going to happen with? Let's just talk about Darcy first. Do you guys think that? Because we clearly know that, Geraldine, Monica, had some sort of, autonomy over herself in there, that she was just kind of more acting. She felt Wanda, she felt Wanda's presence, on her mind. But she clearly, knew herself and knew all that. What kind of, relationship do we think that Darcy is going to try and form with Wanda? Or do we think that Darcy... is going to know herself, or do you think she's going to be kind of, out of the loop when we see her in Westview?
I would have to imagine that it's going to be similar to Monica, aka Geraldine, because when Monica saw Wanda again, when Wanda exited the bubble to deliver the sword drone, she said, "You knew on some level I was an ally." So, as much as Wanda is doing this, she's reiterated a couple of times she doesn't know how it started. So, I do believe on some level it's just kind of like almost an primal, animalistic reaction. So, I do think she will be able to recognize that Darcy is also an ally.
Mm-hmm.
So she will have, especially with her knowledge of everything that's going on, that will just aid her as well. But I could really see her, given the fact that we're going to go into this kind of like a little more modern setting. I wouldn't be surprised if she played kind of like almost like a version of herself in a way where she's kind of like just that sarcastic, kind of gothic, almost hacker type. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the show NCIS, but I could totally see her being like an Abby type.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that would make a lot of sense because now, like you said, the sitcom is now kind of modern. So I think we might not see as big of a difference. And also because it's like, it's going to be interesting because all the people, they all turned into clowns and stuff because that's kind of what fit that night. But next week, everything's going to be jumping another decade. So they're all going to be, regular people again, probably. Which I think is very interesting. TJ, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen with Darcy? Or if you want to talk about, what do you think's going to be next for, Monica and Jimmy and that kind of thing?
Well, as far as Darcy goes, like, I think I agree. Like, she'll have like the same kind of like she'll be able to think her own thoughts because she'll probably like want to probably just see her as like, an ally, whereas to all the other, soldiers and everything that got changed into, like you said, clowns. Or was there another shot of anybody else being turned into anything?
Clowns, mimes.
Clowns and mimes.
Oh, mimes. They probably will just be under like the same, I feel like, spell everybody else is under, where they're just kind of, they're basically in a show. Exactly. For Jimmy and Monica, I don't know, because they're currently still like out. When we left them, they're still like trying to outdrive the impending doom.
Yeah, that was the last time we saw them.
I think they beat it because I think she'll stop expanding it at some point. Maybe like at the beginning of the episode, they'll show like how far it got. Did we see what happened to what's his name, the director?
Hayward made it out as far as we know.
Yeah, he made it out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's who I want to talk about next, definitely, because there's a lot of Hayward stuff in this episode. But I mean, I guess we could go talk about that next. So yeah, the two basically people that we see make it out is, Jimmy and Monica are driving away from it, but then also Hayward and like a few other people in that one SUV basically make it out as well. What do you guys think is going on with Hayward? Do you think that he is just a full-on villain, or do you think, I've seen people compare him to the character that Edward James Olmos played in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where it's not a villain, but just kind of too stubborn for his own good, is just kind of, basically like we kind of see in this episode, that he's just really hardened from the blip and from those 5 years.
Yeah.
Do you think that we're just dealing with, for lack of a better term, do you think we're just dealing with like an asshole, or do you think he is like really got some nefarious schemes going on behind the scenes?
I think, man, I think he is a villain. I don't know how big of a villain. But I think he also is. I feel like maybe he's only a villain because I don't think he's like Mephisto or anything like that. But I think he's a villain because of those 5 years. Like he's one of those people that's like, superheroes are the reason that this happened, and we don't need them, etc.
Because we clearly see that he has that bias because he tells Monica, he's like, yeah, I know your history with Carol Danvers. Like you're constantly, what does he say? It's like you're constantly vouching on behalf of superpowered individuals.
Yeah, which again, she
says that,
kind
like,
of
it's a terrible thing.
Yeah, she gives that reaction again where like she doesn't want to hear about Captain Marvel at all. And we kind of skipped over it, but they talk about her like blood tests again and how Hayward has those, and Darcy like shows her like the screen, and I think there's just like clearly there's just something wrong with them.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I get millions of blood tests, like, blah, blah, blah. She's kind of brushing it off. Like, I wonder if she like were to, I mean, she obviously like in the comics, right, she gets powers. I don't know what kind of, are they like Captain Marvel-esque? Is that what they are now?
Like kind of. It's like she's like it's like energy, you know what I mean? Which basically is like what Carol's powers are. She can convert energy and stuff. It's more like Monica is like made out of energy and can do,
like is that something her character would despise? That she would become, because clearly again she has some like grudge towards
I don't think she would,
Carol Danvers.
I don't think she would despise it, but I think she would maybe like, she would just kind of want to be her own thing. Clearly based on, based on the MCU version, clearly she would be like even though the powers are similar, like she'd probably want to be like, this has nothing to do with, Captain Marvel. Like I've got these powers on my own kind of thing. J Scotty, what were you saying? Sorry.
Well, just kind of taking it back to Hayward as far as his role. I struggle to call him an outright villain. He's definitely, we learned that he's hiding a few things here.
Yeah.
So I would call him the antagonist, but one of the things that stuck out to me is that he's got detailed diagnostics on the position of Vision, as well as the citizens of Westview. So he's had a lot of information that he hasn't been sharing for quite some time, and we already know that Vision was rescued, abducted by Wanda from the Sword facility. So given the fact that Sword in the MCU has been repurposed to be sentient weapon, I think it's pretty obvious that Hayward is obviously trying to either reverse engineer or create a new version of Vision. We got that scene of the computer screen Project Cataract. Who knows what that is? Maybe that's a resurrection of Ultron. Who really knows?
I've seen that as a theory that Hayward is some sort of because he clearly has this anti-superhero view, that either I've seen some theories that say like he himself is a version of Ultron that like survived. Well, because it's not a very big leap to say that Ultron survived, because basically the only thing that we see happen is that great acting by Paul Bettany, the great speech that he gives and then kills the last Vision or the last Ultron drone. But Ultron is a person that he could easily have backed himself up into the cloud basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I've seen theories that say and obviously I keep saying Vision. Ultron is so intrinsically tied to both Vision and Wanda. Huge. He basically in a way kind of helped create both of them into the people that they are today, or the people they were in Vision's case. So I've seen some really cool theories, and I would be one for that. There's also been people all over the internet. It's just the Google casting list, so it's like
I saw that.
But like people have said like for weeks they're like, oh, it says that James Spader is playing the voice of Ultron and stuff, which I think is possible. I mean,
but it could also just be like a flashback, like a quick like 5-second like thing, But
what if she said a cameo on par with Luke Skywalker? It doesn't necessarily have to be a hero. What if we realize that it's not Mephisto, it's not Nightmare, it's not even Agatha Harkness? What if it's really Ultron behind the scenes of all of this stuff? Or maybe Ultron working with somebody, and that is who the big cameo is that Ultron is back.
Yeah, honestly, I'd be fine. I liked Age of Ultron. I liked the villain. So I'd be completely fine with that. I love James Spader as the voice. And I think that'd be really interesting. I don't know how far you could take that.
Yeah.
Because then you're just
without it just being
you're bringing back
basically,
yeah. Like I don't know, like I don't think you could expand that to like if you take that then into like Doctor Strange, for example, or something like that, and then it's like, okay, well, we already seen this villain, so let's move on.
Where I think maybe it's Ultron. If it is Ultron, maybe it's Ultron working with or working for someone. Maybe somebody like Nightmare or somebody like Mephisto. facilitated in bringing Ultron back, kind of thing,
Right.
knowing that it would kind of torment some people. But needless to say, I think Hayward definitely his views definitely align with Ultron's thinking as well. You know what I mean? That superpowered people are clearly the problem, and the solution is killing the superpowered people. You know what I mean? Because Monica says, we don't know what could happen if Wanda dies. So you know what I mean? She's like, if Wanda dies, the whole hex could expand to the entire universe, and then everything is just under this crazy, basically spell. And now Wanda's dead, and we have no hope of, reversing any of it.
Yeah.
So I think it's just going to be very, very interesting to see where this goes. Is there anything left of the... Well, let's talk about expanding of the Hex. Let's end on that, and then if there's anything else we haven't talked about already, we could definitely jump back into that. So at the end of this episode, we see, Wanda kind of does the most powerful thing we've ever seen her do, basically, is she kind of throws her arms out, and everything in the entire hex just completely stops.
Yeah.
I watched it twice, but I didn't catch if when she did that, if Billy and Tommy stopped too.
I don't think so.
Good, because the main thing that I want from this show is I do not want Billy and Tommy to be fake. I just want, because the characters, they're developing them so well. You know what I mean? I just don't. It's gonna suck so much if they're like, oh no, they actually weren't real. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna be like, oh gosh. But yeah, then we see, because basically she knows that Vision is trying to get out, and she knows that if Vision tries to get out, what's gonna happen is that he's gonna start dying again. So basically, rather than look for where he is and try to get to him fast enough, she just basically expands the whole hex to kind of put the hex back around him. J Scotty.
Oh, yeah, not to cut you off too much, but a major part of that scene is the fact that it's actually Billy. Billy comes into his own with his powers, and he's the one that uses his telepathy to see the men with guns, and that's what tells Wanda that's where he is, and that's why she needs to expand. So it's kind of a nice moment between saw, Tommy to bond with Quicksilver over their powers. This was kind of cool for Wanda and Billy to bond in that regard.
Yeah. And Billy also in that scene has a great line where he's like, she kind of brushes over it, but he's like, what's happening to me? Like, what, which is kind of the classic thing that we've seen in like the Fox X-Men universe of like, what, like, why am I hearing these, voices, or like with Rogue, you know what I mean? Like what's happening to me? That's a big thing with her and, Bobby that we've seen in those movies and stuff too. So, and also them being, as we've said, the first naturally born superpowered humans in the MCU that we've seen.
That's huge.
Yeah, very, very huge. That's another reason I hope that they're real. But yeah, then we see her expand the hex. So what do you guys think of that? Do you think that we could see the hex expand again? What if like the big finale of this is that Wanda, goes real crazy and just expands the hex to the whole country or the whole world? I mean, what if that's like, well, I mean, if it's going to be something where Doctor Strange, let's say it's the example where she is the villain of Doctor Strange 2. What if she expands the hex over the entire world and Doctor Strange has no choice but to go to another world to get allies to come back? You know what I mean? And that's the only way he can save himself, because basically our Earth as we know it is completely inside of this hex. What do you guys think about that theory?
I would be totally on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That'd be great. Like to end the show, like you're saying, end the show like that.
Yeah, just a huge, massive cliffhanger. I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, that'd be wild.
Yeah.
Man, considering when does Doctor Strange come? Because when is Doctor Strange 2 supposed to come out? 2022.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so because I'm thinking like, well, what do you have?
Yeah, March 2022.
What do you have that could take place currently during that? Well, Black Widow's a prequel. Eternals is just. Like, I was gonna say Eternals is like great part. Wherever.
Yeah, because Eternals, they basically said Eternals is like, it spans the course of like 2,000 years or something, or maybe even more than that. So like that's clearly gonna be a prequel. Shang-Chi we know is set during the blip.
Shang-Chi.
Yeah, that's set during the blip, so that's before this. We know that Spider-Man 2 and 3 actually are set after WandaVision. So possibly, but also Spider-Man 2 is not a great example because in Far From Home there was a lot of stuff that is weird about that universe in the movie, including the appearance of J. Jonah Jameson, which has never come up before. So that could be a, the world that we've already seen in Far From Home could have already been, kind of messed with the multiverse. And then we know that Spider-Man 3 is going to be set after the Multiverse of Madness. So kind of it could be set, in between or something like that. So Spider-Man 3 is really the only sticking point with that kind of, could mess up. Yeah. But pretty much everything else, pretty much everything else is either a prequel or is set, directly before Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. So it could work, which is very, very interesting. But yeah, it's March 25th, 2022. So it's really only about a little bit over a year away, which is very exciting. I mean, it used to be
this this thought just came to me. It's very, very long shot, and it's nowhere close to like a Luke Skywalker-esque cameo. But what if at the end of WandaVision, instead of Doctor Strange, Chiwetel Ejiofor showed up?
Oh, as Mordo?
Yeah. Like, I know he's obviously, I mean, she doesn't know he's a villain. She doesn't know him at all.
Yeah.
Last time we saw him, he said too many sorcerers and Wanda for all.
Yeah, and that was how. What did Doctor Strange come out like 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Like we haven't seen him since then.
Yeah. Actually,
I'm just excited to see where these characters that they've set up, where they end up. Like Adam Warlock, we haven't seen that assumed character since Volume 2 Guardians of the Galaxy, which was however many years ago.
Yeah.
I actually, real quick.
Oh yeah.
When we were reviewing, me and Danielle watched the Incredible Hulk 2 days ago, and they did the thing, where I always forget the actor's name. He's in Watchmen. He's in Holes. He's in
Tim Blake Nelson.
Yeah, when they do like the whole mind thing, I was like, I wonder if that'll ever come up again.
I think he will absolutely be back as the leader at some point. Because they said, what was the show that said? Oh, Falcon and Winter Soldier. They said that Falcon and Winter Soldier will reintroduce Phase 1 characters that were kind of put by the wayside. So my two biggest bets for that would be like Justin Hammer, definitely, I think, has the biggest chance of being in Falcon and Winter Soldier. I also think Justin Hammer has, I would say, a 98 to 99.9% chance of being either the main villain or one of the villains in Armor Wars with Rhodey. I think that is a perfect fit. And also, we know he went to prison for like 10 years, and it's been like 13 or 14 years in universe since Iron Man 2. So he'd definitely be out by now. And then I think also the leader. I think that would be a good choice. I think the leader would probably show up in She-Hulk. Would be a great person to show back up.
We already got Tim Roth's Emil Blonsky confirmed for She-Hulk, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I hate that villain.
Well, I mean, we've seen before, bad versions of things or, less than great versions of things be redeemed in the MCU. So, hopefully if they bring him back, they can do a little bit more justice with better CGI and better scripts.
When Danielle and I were watching it, when he gets like slapped by the Hulk and he hits the tree, and I was like, she's like, why would you do that? I was like, that's what we said when we reviewed it. Like, how stupid are you?
Visceral. That stuff was crazy. All right. Well, is there anything else from the episode that we haven't touched on, or any other theories or thoughts, or look into the future that you guys want to touch on before we go?
I'm good. I'm all set.
Mine's nothing too major. Just two quick lines I wanted to point out. We got the nice Kick-Ass reference with
yes.
Both Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Very, very good.
Having been in Kick-Ass, and then I loved when Pietro, when they were out trick or treating, he's like. Unleash hell, demon spawn.
Yeah.
Because there's been so many theories about the code tied to House of M as well as Mephisto, that West Avengers arc where Master Pandemonium basically is the one that created her children.
I think it's I think every line in this show, every line and every moment in the show is completely intentional. Like that's why I say like if this was Aaron Taylor Johnson's Quicksilver, just recast, he would have had the exact same particle effect, behind him that he did in Age of Ultron. Like, that's why I think, like, nothing is insignificant in this show. Like, every single thing serves a purpose that we will later find out. You know what I mean? Like, exactly like what J Scotty just said, like the Unleash Hell demon spawn, and it's like, that might be what we see in the finale, is literally, demon spawn unleashing hell on either Westview or using Westview to unleash hell on the rest of the Earth, or the rest of the universe, however big we go with this. And then, of course, I love the kick-ass line, because it's, obviously it's just so funny that, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Evan Peters both play the same character. Now they literally play the same character.
Right.
And they're, both in Kick-Ass and everything. But yeah, I mean, with that, I think that'll do it for our episode review of WandaVision for episode 6, the All New Halloween Spooktacular. But yeah, great episode. Yeah, great episode. It just keeps building and building and building upon everything that came before, up to, I'm sure, what is going to be either a really frustrating cliffhanger or a very satisfying conclusion. One of those two. But yeah, so with that, I think that'll do it. We want to thank again J Scotty for joining us on today's episode. Absolutely. And we want to remind you guys too, again, we're trying to get the channel up to 50 subscribers, and when we hit 50, we're going to be doing a Twitter giveaway of 2 WandaVision Funko Pops of Wanda and Vision from the 50s. So make sure that you are following us on Twitter, and obviously subscribe to the channel to get us to that mark. And then we'll let you guys know what exactly the tweet is that we want you to reply to. We'll pick the winner from. But yeah, with that, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. As you guys know, obviously this is pre-recorded, but we're gonna set it as a premiere, so there will be a live chat. So I hope you guys keep the conversation going even without us. We'll try to check in on it afterwards, or maybe when it's live. If I have some downtime at work or anything like that. But yeah, thanks again for J Scotty for joining us. Episode 7 of Planet Hero in the books. As always, my name is Sean Monk. My Twitter handle is right down there at Paste Eating Yak. My co-host is
TJ Cornwell, TJ_Cornwell.
There you go. And then J Scotty, you want to give yourself a shout out with your Twitter handle?
Yeah, you guys can follow me at J Scott for real. That's REEL. And I also do some artwork, a lot of cartoons that are very movie centric and geekdom fandom centric. So if you're into that kind of thing, give me a follow on Instagram as well. It's at J Scotty for real. Real spelled the same way there. EEL.
Yeah,
thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, yeah. And he recently did a cool little drawing of Ultron, which is very, very cool. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for being on, and we're glad to have had you. We'll definitely you can have you back whenever our scheduling is normal, and we'll get you on a mainline episode of Planet Film too. So with that, yeah, and speaking of Planet Film, we'll be live regular time, should be regular time, fingers crossed, Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live for you guys. So we will catch you guys in the next one. Thanks so much for joining us today. Peace.
Peace.